You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Hello there, my good friends. Welcome to this episode all about how to describe a map or a plan. And I don't think I've talked about this for a while. No, I don't think I've ever spoken about this on IELTS podcast. The reason is because it's much more common to find a graph or a chart or a pie chart on the IELTS Academic Task 1. However, that does not mean that we cannot prepare for it. And if you do get a map, personally, I think you are a little bit lucky because they're not too difficult. So the academic writing component for task 1 will could be a map or a diagram of a building, a street, a village, or a city, and it might ask you to contrast an older plan with a newer plan, or it might ask you to compare the current map of the area with a future map of the area, perhaps after the construction has been finished, or perhaps after there's a new route or some new roads placed in the new graph. So, as the same as the other academic task 1, it's 150 words, plus or minus 10%. So you can write 135 words, or you can write a maximum 165 words. After that, the examiner stops checking. So that's really important. If you're getting your essays corrected, which I recommend you do, there's no point in sending an essay for task 1 of 200 words, because the person who's correcting it will probably stop, or they should stop, around 165. So there's just no point in doing that. Best editing it and reducing it down. So, as always, your writing would be scored on 4 criteria: task achievement, coherence, lexical resource, grammatical accuracy. Those are the standard. And we're going to go into each one of those and just review it in respect to IELTS Academic Task 1. Now, before we start, I could just talk about these 4 criteria. That would be helpful. However, I want to go a little bit more than standard theoretical academic help. I want you to be fully prepared, and the best way to get your preparation, the best way to start this academic task 1 is to actually make a plan. Okay, you cannot just start writing. I mean, if you can, that's fantastic, but personally I know that I couldn't, and I know that I would produce a much better quality piece of writing if I actually just sat down first and made a good solid plan. So now, when we're making a plan, it's not a case of just what are we going to do for the 4 paragraphs. The best way to do it is to organize your thoughts. So for the first sentence, we're not going to say sort of like the story. We're going to take a similar approach to what I've taught before regarding academic task 1, and that is we're just going to give an overview. We're not going to talk about the changes. We're just going to say something like the 2 maps demonstrate, the 2 maps show construction or proposed construction work for Cheltenham Village in the year 2010 and the future changes in 2020. Okay, that's it. We're not going to say there's a proposed change of the roadway will directly block all new traffic from neighbouring villages. No, we don't write anything about the detail. It's just sort of like an overview, what we can see at first glance. Okay, then this is what I wanted to say. Sorry, I got distracted there. When you're making your plan, okay, think of it as so we can start anywhere when we're doing this, okay? But like IELTS Academic Task 1, if we've got a bar chart, then it's probably best starting from the left and going to the right, okay? It's like a natural way. We don't start in the middle. And we should take the same approach when we're describing the map. So we'll go from left to right, okay? This will help you organize your thoughts a lot easier because now you've got kind of a system in place. Also, another logical place to start would be if you've got maybe 2 room plans. Yeah, the logical place here to start would be with the doorway, okay, as if you're walking in, and then the description would be much more natural. So you say, upon entering, on the left-hand side, we can see a large area, a large lounge area, which is incidentally, which is the largest in the building. Opposite the lounge is the dining room. This is the second largest area and also occupies the most amount of windows, or also has the most amount of windows. Can you see? And this way it's much easier to follow as well because it's like a natural way. So there's 2 different ways, and this is what you've got to be aware of when you're organizing, when you're planning your work. Now, here's a very useful tip. While you are planning it, okay, if you can see that there's 2 parts of the graph that have not changed, for example, you've got a village, you've got 2 maps of 2 towns, and one of the maps is from 1960 and the other map is from 2010. And you can see that both maps, even though there has been a lot of changes, that the park has remained the same. Now it's not gold, but it will help you because what you can do now is you can say something like, over the 50-year period, both maps have maintained a distinct park area despite the extensive construction in the surrounding areas. Can you see? And what we've done is grouped the information, and we've mentioned 2 parts of the 2 different graphs, but in one sentence. Okay, and this is what the examiners want. They want you to show your ability in grouping information and giving an overall idea. And if you're grouping it, then this clearly demonstrates like an overall idea of what's happening between the 2 graphs. Okay, and we can also use slightly fancy construction, saying despite the extensive construction in the surrounding areas. Okay, so we're using a contrast there as well. So that was the first thing I want to mention. Make a plan and set it out logically. This will help you tremendously when you come to writing it, and also when it comes to reading it. It's going to make your report much more coherent. So now, for the task achievement, you need to be sure that you write at least 150. I said before 135, but there's just no point in writing 135, okay? It's plus or minus 10%, but usually it's best to hit, it's usually always best to hit the 150. Okay, of course it doesn't have to be exact, but around there. So I would describe all the information illustrated on the map, and we don't do this in list form. Like I said before, there's probably a lot of information there, so any opportunity to group and identify similarities and to group similarities together, take that opportunity. Okay, so when you're doing your map, you probably want to spend about 3 minutes just trying to understand it, identify the main changes between them, circle the key points, and just go to work and maybe put like a circle and put paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 similarity, paragraph 2 big difference, mention, and so yeah, we're going to make a plan, and we're going to summarize. Like I said before, the structure is going to be just a rough introduction, a brief introduction. We're not going to say it, we're not going to mention the changes at all. Then the two next body paragraphs, we're going to be talking about the graphs and maybe grouping and identifying the changes. And then at the end, what we do is we give an overview, okay? And we can say something like, overall, the town, for example, we've got a town, like I said before. Overall, the town has changed significantly over the 60-year period, over the time given. However, the park has maintained the same. That would be a bit of repetition. So let me just do it again and say something like, overall, the town has changed drastically over the 60 years. Small areas, certain areas have maintained the same, but the biggest change has been in the transfer of the change in use of the land from recreational to retail. Okay, and we'll just give the overview there. And this is what you want to resist writing in your introduction. Okay, so that would be the key issue there. Okay, now coherence. So you should be doing it roughly. Okay, you've got your introduction, which I just mentioned. Then we've got the main paragraph. Maybe one paragraph, two paragraphs there, depending on the graph. Okay, some tutors say it's just one block, one text, but it depends, it depends. So you'll have to make up your own mind there. Now, to help us with coherence, we're going to use some connectors. So these might be first of all, in addition, and to summarize. Okay, those would be quite three useful structures there to use. And we could have consequently the area around the park is surrounded by trees. Okay, also surrounded by, to the left of, opposite this, across the road. These kind of phrases that we use when we're learning the language. All right. So what is important is to maintain the coherence and the logical flow of ideas. So if you've done a solid plan to begin with, this will be much easier. Okay. I just remembered as well, some other useful phrases and constructions to use would be like to the southwest of the park, north of the park, or at the most southerly point, we can see a river flowing from the south to north. Okay, so these getting used to using these sort of like these structures. Yeah, opposite, in front of, to the north, to the northwest, south of the school, we can see a large park surrounded by forest land. So that would greatly help with coherence. And like I said, to get that fully correct, to get the maximum points regarding coherence, a solid plan. Okay, now language or lexical resource. So as in most parts of the exam, we would want to avoid repetition. Okay, and this is especially true regarding the map in front of us. This is a challenging task because sometimes there is only one useful word or one word that we can use, and in that case we've got no option but to use it. But if you can find some synonyms, then it would be much better to use them. Okay, now the next part I want to say is that if we can use verbs such as show, demonstrate, or illustrate, then this will help because verbs move the writing along. So let's go. The map illustrates plans to change the green area into a playground for children. Can you see? So, and as I said, we can use the synonyms not only for places on the map and labels on the map, but also also synonyms of illustrate. So what synonyms have we got for illustrate? Well, we can see highlight, indicate, or demonstrate. So The map highlights a project to transform the green park into a play area for children. Now, like I said before, just very briefly, we can also use the prepositions. So there's a large residential area between the small lake and the park, or a road runs alongside the border of the park. So yeah, I briefly mentioned that before regarding the coherence, and this is all kind of interlinked. So the next part, here's a tip as well. I just remembered comparisons and superlatives. Okay, so and this is especially important when we're making the plan, because you want to definitely include these. So one surefire way is to use something like clearly the largest area on the map is the fields west of the river. Yeah, or let's see, or the smallest areas in the house plan are the ones in the top right hand corner, and these are the storage, the pantry and the lavatory, whereas the largest areas are the living room and dining room. Yeah, and not only have we used the superlatives in that final sentence, but we also use the comparisons. Okay, these are easy points, and it's an easy thing to include. A lot of students have said to me in the past, I don't know what to include when they're writing. Well, not as many, but a few comparisons, whereas, while, these superlatives, and the grouping of information. Okay, if you're just following those three, you've got three very useful points now to include and to look for when you're describing your map. Right, so now if we're including those forms that I just mentioned, and we're going to use the passive form. So I'm not going to go into a whole lecture about the passive form, but we do want to use at least one or two sentences. And this is probably going to be, inevitable regarding a map or task one. So we'll go, the park is located west of the village. Okay, the playground will be built in the southwest part of the park. Flower garden will be created east of the playground. Can you see? So with the passive, we don't know who is planning these changes. So this is why, in this case, we don't know who is the actor. We don't know who's actually the subject here. The park is located. Okay. So this is why it's useful, because in the task one, we probably don't have this information anyway. So use the passive form, and there's lots of exercises available online. Hey, oops, what's this? Sorry, that was just, let's carry on. So the next thing, tenses. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying, wasn't it? So with the passive form, if you're not familiar with it, go online and just put PDF English grammar in use, and you'll be able to find the teacher's Bible, it's sometimes called. And yeah, I mean, I remember I was talking to one student and he was so impressed with this book. He did download it as a PDF, and I think he bought it in the end because it was so valuable for him. So you might want to just jump online and purchase that. Be a good tool, especially if you're concerned about the long-term quality of your English. So the next thing, tenses. Okay, so we're going to use a range of tenses, especially if we've got the maps in two different time, referring to two different times. So we'll be able to compare the present with the future. So in this case, what we'll need is, I'll give you an example. So we've got a map and it's 2016. So we would say, currently, there is a traffic-free zone in the centre of the park. Full stop. This zone will be expanded to the west area of the park. Okay, so here's a very useful tip. If we're going for clarity, it's much more likely that we're going to score well. Okay, rather than going for fancy structures, go for clarity and stick to the tenses that you know. If you're experimenting, if you want to experiment, and I do recommend you do that, but do that with a teacher. Do that when you're preparing. When the actual exam, stick to the ones you know. Okay. Also, another tip, when we're making recent comparisons, it's useful to employ the present perfect simple. So, for example, a new hospital has been constructed in the east of the village. There have been 2 new roads built around the border of that town. Okay? So that's when we're making recent comparisons. Perhaps if there's a change between a map in 2015 and a 2016 map. And those are the 2 comparisons. Okay, so we're almost finished. Clauses. Okay? To achieve a higher score in the task 1, it's advisable we use some clauses. So I'll give you just 2 examples. To the south of the river, comma, a new hotel has been constructed. Now use these sparingly and make sure you know what you're doing, because I think it's just the other day I was correcting an essay and the student had gone really overboard with these clauses, and it was really difficult to read because not only did the student use a lot of these clauses, but there was also a few grammar errors and a few spelling mistakes, so it was really tricky to understand. So if your writing is crystal clear and it's good, and usually there's no mistakes, grammar mistakes, and it's quite easy to understand, then start experimenting with the clauses and changing the order. Okay, so here's another example. Greystones, which has a population of 50,000, is situated south of Dublin on the seaside. Okay, so the normal way would be Greystones has a population of 50,000 and is situated south of Dublin on the seaside. Okay, so just by using which, we've got a new clause there. Right, so well done for listening to all this, and I hope your exam preparation is going well. You've just been listening to IELTS Podcast with Ben Worthington, and if you need more help regarding your IELTS preparation, then you can go to IELTSPodcast.com, and you can find some essay correction services there, or you can also have a look at the online course at sentenceguide.com. And at the moment it's me correcting the work, so you'll get personalized feedback, and that's the course, by the way, that comes with the guarantee of jump to a band 7 or it's free. There's a few conditions there. You have to do all the work, and you have to get like a 6.5 and show me the certificate beforehand, before starting the course. But even if you're going for a band 6.5 or you're going for a band 8, for a band 9, I'm more than willing to help you jump to that level, and I've done it before in the past and I know what to do. Okay, so you could check out that course at sentenceguide.com. Right then, so that's everything. Keep on preparing, keep working. And by the way, that ringing you heard in the middle of this podcast episode, that was me experimenting with a website called Pomodoro Technique. So if you just put that into Google, Pomodoro Technique, and it's just a good way of organizing your study, especially if you're like a bit of a procrastinator, which has been happening to me recently. All right, so check out those sites, sentenceguide.com, IELTSPodcast.com, of course, and the Pomodoro one. Okay, have a good day and all the best regarding your IELTS prep.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.